Good afternoon. Welcome to 41 online lecture session of the course Computational Fluid Dynamics. In the previous lecture, we completed our discussion on modeling of turbulence using the Renz approach. Okay. Apart from the Renz, we are having two more ways for modeling turbulence. So these two are specifically known as large eddy simulations and direct numerical simulations. Okay, so in this particular lecture we will try to see both LES and DNS approach. Okay, so let me start with first the large eddy simulation. So let me first briefly summarize the conceptual idea of large eddy simulation. So as I told you all earlier also, that in case of turbulence we are having presence of multiple length and time scales. Okay, so we have multiple length scales of turbulence. Similarly, we are having the multiple time scales also. Okay, so there is not a single length scale which is present in the turbulent flow situation. Okay, so for example, the smallest length scale we have encountered is represented with the help of symbol eta, and we called it as Kolmogorov length scale, and the largest length scale we have called as nothing but L, length scale of the largest turbulent eddy as L. So now in case of large eddy simulations, what we do, we have seen from our energy budget and the earlier fundamental knowledge of turbulence that the largest eddies are the ones which are contributors of the turbulence and which are having actually anisotropic nature, and these are the ones which receives our which receives the kinetic energy from the gradient of the mean flow. Okay, and if we talk about small eddies, in case of small eddies, actually there will be relative importance of turbulent stresses as well as the viscous dominance. So viscous dominance makes actually dissipative nature, and we will be finding because of the dissipative nature that small eddies are nothing but of isotropic nature. Okay, so considering this fundamental understanding, in case of large eddy simulations, what is basically done, what we do in case of our flow, for example, we are having the multiple length scales are present, say in some turbulent flow situation, flow through a pipe, then we will be finding that some of the eddies will be very, very small. Okay, so some eddies we will be having of very small size. So what we will be doing, we will be taking some length scale which will be actually distinguishing between the large eddies and the small eddies. Okay, so in order to distinguish between the large eddies and the small eddies, what we have to do, we have to first scan our entire simulation domain. So what we will be doing, we will be doing some scanning of the entire simulation domain, and in this entire scanning we will try to find out that what are the large eddies and which are the small eddies. Okay, and after doing this scanning, what we will do now, we will obtain our governing equations which will only include the large eddies, or I should say the eddies which are above this cutoff scanning criteria. Okay, so we will be actually spatially first filtering out that which are the large eddies present in our simulation, and only the large eddies we will be including in our main governing equations. Okay, so while we will be solving the governing equations, we will be solving governing equations considering the effect of large eddies which are greater than the cutoff criteria. And but as I told you that we are having some small eddies also present in our flow domain. So for finding out the effect of small eddies, what we will be doing, we will be using some subgrid scale models, and these subgrid scale models will help us in determining the effect of the small eddies, and then whatever our main governing equations are there, we will add, first we will solve the main governing equations which are itself including the effect of large eddies, and then the contribution of smaller eddies will be actually obtained from SGS models, and these will be added into our main solution. Okay, so this is the overall idea of large eddy simulations. Now, so is this point clear to all?
Yes, sir.
Now what we have to do, we have to one by one understand that what will be our filtering criteria, how to do spatial filtering of the unsteady Navier-Stokes equations. Okay, so over here we will not go to this concept of averaging of the governing equations like we have done in case of Renz. Rather, over here we will go for the spatial filtering of our entire domain, and based on this spatial filtering criteria we will try to include only the large eddies along with the main flow. Okay, so there is this particular equation. For example, if I have some parameter phi and I have to now find out some another parameter phi bar such that this phi bar is nothing but only including the effect of mean flow plus large eddies. Okay, so this phi bar is nothing but now it is having only contribution of mean flow plus large eddies. So the difference is that in case of Renz, phi bar was representing nothing but time averaging when flow was steady, and it was representing ensemble averaging when flow was unsteady. Okay, however, over here what we are saying, I am calling that phi is my main variable, which represents the instantaneous variation of parameter. Okay, however, we are considering some quantity phi bar, and this phi bar is not the time average or ensemble average as we have done in Renz. Rather, it is a parameter which includes the effect of mean flow plus large eddies. So it means from our instantaneous parameters we have actually removed the effect of small eddies. Okay, so once we remove the effect of small eddies, we will be getting some another parameter that we are calling as phi bar, which is different than the phi bar parameters which we obtained in case of Renz simulations. Okay, so now let us try to see that what is the definition of this phi bar. So we are saying that phi bar x comma t is nothing but equal to, we are doing volumetric integration, say this is minus infinity to infinity, and this we have done over dx1, dx2, dx3. So x1, x2, x3 are nothing but direction vector along the principal coordinates in Cartesian coordinate system. Okay, then we are having over here first as multiplication of instantaneous parameter phi, and before that we are using some pre-multiplier g of x comma x dash comma delta. So this particular function g of x comma x dash comma delta is something which is called as nothing but our filtering function. Okay, so in the simple words, if I explain you, I can relate it to the concept of low pass or high pass filters in case of our electronic signals. Okay, so we know that in case of electronic signals we are having occurrence of large number of frequencies and wavelengths over there. Okay, so sometimes depending upon the requirement of the electronic circuit we put some filter, and sometimes we put high pass filter, sometimes we put low pass filter. Okay, for example, if we want the low frequencies in our output signal, then we will be putting low pass filter, and if we want high pass high frequencies, then we will be putting high pass filter. Okay, so the function, the task which is done by this low pass or high pass filter in electronic signal, similar task is actually done by this function g over here. Okay, so g is something which is called as filtering function, and the whole idea of this filtering function is that it will be helping us to segregate large eddies and small turbulent eddies. Okay, now you can see over here that once we will be multiplying our instantaneous parameter phi with this filtering function g, we will be finding our final outcome as nothing but the mean. I will not be calling it as mean, I will be getting some phi bar parameter which will be including the effect of mean flow plus large eddies only. Okay, now one important point we are having in this filtering function, we are using some argument as delta. So this argument delta is something which is called as cutoff length. Okay. So this argument delta is something which is called as cutoff length. Generally, what we try to do, we try to consider this delta of the order of our grid size. Okay. Why? Let me just explain you. Here also you can see I have drawn some situation like this. So for example, here you can see for some of the eddies we are having number of grids present. Okay. For example, this eddy is represented or participating in number of cells. So it means I can properly resolve this turbulent eddy. However, if you see some of these eddies over here, I have drawn like this, that I have some cell and in between the cell I have some turbulent eddy. So under this condition, we will not be able to properly resolve the smallest eddies over here. Okay, so what we will be doing, we will be actually filtering these out and we will only consider the effect of large gradients, and whatever effects caused by these small eddies, these will be included with the help of SGS models. Okay, subgrid scale models. Okay, so this delta over here is something which I told you as the cutoff criteria, cutoff length, which actually helps us in segregating the large and the small eddies. And generally this delta is taken of the order of grid size. Okay, and when we are having some uniform mass, obviously delta will be of the order of delta x, and if we are having non-uniform mass, or in that case what we have to do, delta we have to consider of the order of cube root of delta x, delta y, delta z. If for the non-uniform element I consider delta x, delta y and delta z are the length of the element in x, y and z direction. Okay, now this is the overall idea. This is the main equation actually. Now this filtering function, we are having a number of filtering functions available. So depending upon the requirement of the problem or the way we are solving our governing equation, actually we can choose different filtering functions. So the very first filtering function is called as top hat or box filter function. So in case of top hat or box filter function, if x minus x dash is less than equal to delta by 2, then its value is 1 by delta cube. So it means it in certain range about the x, it will be including only effect, and away from that all the eddies it will be actually neglecting. Okay, similarly there is another filter which is called as Gaussian filter, and Gaussian filter is also very popular in large eddy simulation. So the mathematical formulation of Gaussian filter is something like this, and over here we are having some parameter gamma whose value is considered as 6. Then one more filter function is there, spectral cutoff. So for this spectral cutoff, this is our nothing but the mathematical form of the filtering function. So one important thing we have to remember over here, once we will be doing this integration of instantaneous parameter phi by including the filtering function in our integration, we will be getting some parameter phi bar, which will be nothing but including the effect of only mean flow at the large eddies. Okay, and depending upon the requirement of the problem, we may use different type of filtering functions. Okay, now let us try to see that once we apply these filtering functions on our Navier-Stokes equations, then what will be happening to the equations. Okay, so this is nothing but our continuity equation. This is our momentum, x momentum, this is y momentum and z momentum equation. Okay, now in these momentum equations, you can consider at the moment we are having only UVW. So means at the moment we are considering our overall variation, instantaneous variation of the parameter. Okay, so it means it is including the effect of mean flow as well as the turbulent fluctuations. Okay, but once we will be doing this previous this step, once we will be applying over here. Okay, so when you will be multiplying the parameter with filtering function, and then you will be doing the volumetric integration for incompressible flow situation. Let me write over here. For incompressible flow situation, we will be getting our continuity equation as nothing but del rho by del t plus divergence of rho u bar equal to 0. So once again, let me repeat, this u bar is now not our time averaged or ensemble averaged quantity. Rather, u bar over here indicates the effect of mean flow plus large eddies. Okay, so small eddies we have actually neglected over here. Okay, so this is now the continuity equation which we will be getting once we apply this filtering process. Then next part is, now this is our nothing but filtered unsteady Navier-Stokes equation. So this is our x momentum equation. Okay, so in case of x momentum equation also, now you can see wherever we were having actually u, in place of u over here we are having u bar, here p bar, here u bar, but one additional term we are getting over here as nothing but multiplication of u into u vector and bar of entire. So now over here the algebra will not be similar to whatever we have applied in case of Rains. Okay, so please don't confuse it with the time average. So whatever algebra was there at Rains, we cannot apply it over here. Okay, so this is something which will be actually creating the difficulty over here. Okay, so this will create difficulty because over here we are mainly interested in finding out the effect of mean flow plus large eddies. And mean flow plus large eddies, when we consider our parameter takes simple form u bar or say u vector bar. But this u and u vector multiplication and entire bar is something which is not having like we have not seen its physical meaning till our this particular discussion. Okay. Similarly, you can see my y momentum equation, and here also we are having one confusing term over here for which the physical meaning is not yet clear to us. Okay, and then if we talk about our z momentum equation, so that also similarly we can see. So all the bar quantities are nothing but mean flow plus effect of large eddies, but this term over here is something which we have not seen actually earlier. Okay, so what we are doing over here now, in order to just generalize this term, we have considered one equation. So divergence of I have generalized this with multiplier phi. Okay, so when I'll be writing x momentum equation, I'll be considering phi equal to u. For y momentum, I can consider it as v, and for z momentum, I can consider as w. Okay. Now, if I write this generalized divergence of rho phi u and bar of phi into u multiplication, what I have done, I have kept this term as it is, and one term I have added and same term I have subtracted over here. So you can see I have added divergence of phi bar into u bar and I have subtracted it. Okay. So once I will be doing this substitution into our governing equations, in the left hand side, now I have considered, so in x momentum, in place of phi, I have replaced it with u. So I'm writing in the left momentum equation now divergence of rho u bar into u vector bar. Okay, and whatever the addition term I am having, additional term I am having, that actually I have put it on the right hand side. Okay. So in the right hand side, you can see here we were having this term. So this I have taken it to the right hand side, and because I'm adding something over here, so I have to subtract also. Okay, so that I have done over here. Similar operation is applied in y and z momentum equation also. Now, one important thing you can see over here, that while we are actually doing so, this term has become nothing but usual convection term. Okay, so now this has become usual convection term because now I am writing u bar and u vector bar. So this is nothing but it is showing the convection of this quantity u because of this u vector function u bar. Okay, and the physical definition is very clear to us that bar over here is representing mean flow plus large eddies. Okay, now what are these additional terms that let us try to see in the next slide. Okay, so for the additional term, if I just write down divergence of rho u minus rho u into, so this entire term I have taken, divergence I have taken common, and entire term actually I have written inside. Okay, so this will be becoming del by del x of rho ui u bar minus rho ui u bar. So okay, so this is nothing but expansion of this entire term. Okay, because from the previous slide this was also having divergence, it was also having divergence, so we have taken divergence common, and after taking the divergence common we have written this particular form over here. Okay, so now if you see this form actually we are calling as, say, some stress parameter tau ij. So now let me clearly distinguish you that in case of the previous formulation, if we will be writing shear stress, that I'll be writing as nothing but tau bar. So this tau over here is actually different from tau bar. Tau bar is something which is including the gradients of u bar. Okay, so gradients of u bar means gradient of mean flow plus large eddies. Okay, however, over here we are having some quantity for which physical meaning is not clear to us. So that's why we are representing it with some tensor notation as tau. See, we are calling it as stress only. Okay, and this stress is something at the moment for which we have not given any name. Okay, and I have written this in the form of nothing but tensor notation. Similarly, tau ij, so this notation I have simply written it over here in matrix notation or tensor notation. Okay, now as I told you earlier that we are having some instantaneous parameter phi, and we are having some parameter phi bar which includes the effect of mean flow and only large eddies. So it means there is something which is left, and that value if we add to this phi bar, that will be contributing to our main parameter phi. Okay, so that decomposition I have written over here. Okay, so you can see over here this phi of xt, which is our main instantaneous parameter, that is nothing but phi bar plus phi dash, where this phi dash is nothing but effect of small eddies. So this is the effect of small eddies which are actually neglected. Okay, so which we have actually filtered rather than neglected. I can write it as which are filtered into our main governing equations. Now you can see over here this rho ui uj bar, I have done over here the substitution in the form of u bar plus u dash. Okay, because this u is something which I can write as u bar plus u dash. So u bar will be representing effect of large eddies and mean flow, and this will be our smaller eddies which we have filtered out. Okay, so if you do some algebra over here, finally you can write that tau ij will be taking the form rho ui bar uj bar. So now this is something for which physical meaning is clear to us, and for this also physical meaning is clear to us, and then this is something which we are considering over here as the double bar of that. Okay, similarly we are having this ui bar into uj dash. So when dash component is also actually coming into picture, and one more parameter we are having as the last term, rho ui dash uj dash bar. Now if you see this ui dash uj dash bar is something which is looking like our Reynolds stresses. Okay, so this is something which is looking like Reynolds stresses in case of Rain's simulation. In case of Rain's simulation, Reynolds stress was the entire contribution because of the fluctuating flow or turbulence. But over here, along with this Reynolds stress, we are having some another contributor. Okay, so that's why while we are estimating this Reynolds stress, we are giving this notation Reynolds stress. We are calling it as LES Reynolds stress. So LES Reynolds stress, I have given one name, and this first term over here is something which is actually called as Leonard stresses. So first term is called as Leonard stresses, last term is called as Reynolds stress, and this term which is there in the center, it is called as cross stress. Okay, so physically cross stress is something which represents the coupling in between the large eddies and the small eddies which we have neglected. So that's why we are calling it as, because you can see one term over here is actually bar and another term over here is nothing but dash. So it means it is representing some coupling. Dash is the contributor of small eddies and U bar is the contributor of large eddies. So it is representing some cross relationship. So that's why we are calling these as cross stresses. So you can say that once we will be doing this filtering in case of LES simulations, finally we will be getting some stresses over here, and these stresses, Leonard-Cross and Elias-Reynolds stresses, are something which are actually not accounted for in our governing equations, or these are accounted for in our governing equation by this additional term. But how to find out these, for this we are not having actually very clear mathematical formulation. Okay, but how to find out this, that we will try to see in the subsequent slide. So till this point, is it clear to all? So whatever I have conveyed till this point, is it clear, or anyone is having any confusion?
Clear, sir.
Okay. Let me move to next portion then. Yeah, so what I mentioned, that now we have got some we have got some understanding that how different terms are coming into our equations, but how to now calculate these stresses, that we have to see. Okay, so let me give you just one idea. Till this point, our governing equations can be solved in usual way as we have employed for laminar flow conditions. Okay, so in case of laminar flow condition also, we are having some parameters over here, and we can employ our usual procedures for solving these governing equations. However, when we will be having addition of these quantities, these terms over here, this is something which is actually different than our laminar flow equation. So how to solve these, that is something we will try to see. And what is their overall constitution, that we have physically seen, that overall constitution is nothing but Leonard, Cross and Reynolds stresses. Okay, now how to find out this? For this, we are having this Smagorinsky-Lilly SGS model. So basically, these stresses, whatever we have obtained, we call these as nothing but subgrid scale stresses. So all these three are called as subgrid scale stresses, SGS stresses. Okay, so for finding out the value of these SGS stresses, we have to go for some SGS models. Okay, so this is the first model which we will be seeing over here. So you can see this model is actually similar to something nothing but our Bozenic approximation. Okay, so the model which we are having over here, this is similar to Bozenic approximation. So what we do in case of Bozenic approximation, we write stress as equal to, or particular if I should say, we write Reynolds stress as nothing but mu times, okay, 2 mu times, where mu we used to take in case of REN simulation as eddy viscosity. Over here we will be calling as nothing but our SGS viscosity. Okay, times gradients of velocity, gradients of the average flow was there. Here we are having gradients of the mean flow plus large eddies. Okay, and after that we were having some term, if you recall, we were having some term minus 2 by 3k delta ij. Okay, so this additional term was there in order to correct our normal component of the stresses. Okay, so here also similar term we are having as 1 by 3 ri I into delta ij. So this term is nothing but for correcting the normal stresses, because when I is not equal to j, in case of shear stresses, this delta ij, Kronecker delta, will become 0. Okay. Now this S bar ij I can write as del u bar by del xj plus del uj by del xi. So this is our now the formulation of Reynolds stress. Now in case of this model, this particular SGS model, what we do, instead of writing only Reynolds stress using this approximation, we write our entire stress parameter. Okay, so just now I told you that we are having three contributors, Lij, Cij and Rij, but all these three are nothing but originated from a single parameter tau ij. So though this Bosenic approximation was only for Rij, but when we apply this Smagorinsky-Lilly SGS model, over here we consider that our entire stress is actually following the Bosenic approximation once we use this viscosity as nothing but SGS dynamic viscosity. Okay, now how to obtain this SGS dynamic viscosity, that is something which we have to see. So if you recall to the Raines simulations, in case of Raines simulations, for determining this eddy viscosity, we have used Prandtl's mixing length. Okay, so we had used over there Prandtl's mixing length. So we were having different criteria. For example, in K epsilon model, we have specified velocity scale and length scales in terms of kinetic energy and its dissipation, and based on that we have obtained the this viscosity, eddy viscosity. Okay, over here what we will be doing, we will be considering our length scale as nothing but equivalent to that of our cutoff value. So whatever the cutoff value we have used in the filtered function, so depending upon that we will be considering our length scale. And when I will be considering the velocity scale I will consider over here as nothing but length scale times mean strain. So this will be actually strain of the mean flow plus large eddy effect. Okay, so if I include both these two into our mixing length like equation, mixing model like equation, I will be finding SGS viscosity as nothing but rho times. So what we were having over there, we were having that eddy viscosity was proportional to rho V into L. So over here also, if we write the similar formulation, V is nothing but delta into S bar and L is nothing but delta. So I can write this proportionality as rho delta square S bar. Okay. Now how I can write velocity as delta into S bar, because S bar is something which represents the gradient of the velocity. So gradient of the velocity multiplied with some length scale will be giving us scaling of nothing but length. Okay. So now here in this formulation of mu, when sign of proportionality, we will be actually replacing, we will be getting some constant as C over here. Okay. Now this I will be getting over here as rho times C SGS delta square, and this S bar over here. So S bar and moreover mod of S bar, because velocity scale there also I told you that we consider the absolute velocity scale. So we are not considering the sign over here. So that's why we have to consider some mod over here, and this mod is actually represented with the help of geometric mean of this. Similar to that of geometric mean of this strain term over here. Okay, and we know the strain is nothing but something like this. So now you can see that whatever this entire last term is coming into our governing equation, this entire term we can replace with this quantity over here with this formulation, and in this formulation actually now we are having this extra stress term written in the form of gradients of the U bar quantity. So if it is written in the form of gradients of the U bar quantity, so we can solve this equation now in our usual fashion, because this is not giving now any additional unknown. So we are not getting any additional unknown. Okay, so this point is clear, how we can solve these additional subgrid scale stresses, or is there any confusion? Is this point clear or shall I repeat? So if you are having any doubt, you please let me know. Otherwise, I'll move to the next part. Okay, so one important point I would like to highlight over here, whatever this CSGS we are having this constant, so different researchers have tried different problems, and they have proposed some values for this constant. So few researchers have proposed the value within the range 0.17 to 0.21. Few have proposed value within the range 0.19 to 0.24. Someone has proposed the range as 0.1. So this value of constant CSGS is actually very, very critical. So for different flow problems, different researchers have proposed different values of this particular model. Okay. Now, there is some higher order SGS model also. So the drawback of this particular SGS model is that here the drawback is almost similar to that of what we saw in case of mixing length model, which was a zero equation model. So in case of mixing length model, the drawback was that this mu was becoming constant throughout the entire domain. So when mu is becoming constant, this is showing that our turbulence is actually approaching towards nothing but isotropic behavior. Okay, whereas turbulence is having anisotropic nature. So in order to account for anisotropic nature, some higher order SGS models are used. So in case of higher order SGS model, what additional thing was done? Basically, the change was made in our velocity scale. Okay, so earlier velocity scale we were writing delta into mod of S bar. Now velocity scale is made proportional to square root of K. So square root of K, where this K is nothing but turbulent kinetic energy. Okay. Now this KSGS we have taken as additional term, turbulent kinetic energy. So, and this constant now instead of C we are calling as C dash. So when we will be using this particular constant over here, C dash, and this square root of this KSGS, so we have to now know the value of turbulent kinetic energy, this SGS turbulent kinetic energy. So in order to find out SGS turbulent kinetic energy, now what we will be doing, we will be solving some additional equation for transport of kinetic energy. So you can see this first term in this kinetic energy is something which represents the time rate of change of turbulent kinetic energy. Second term represents convective term, which is actually the convection part. Third term is diffusion part. Okay. Fourth term is production of SGS turbulent kinetic energy, and last term is actually destruction of SGS turbulent kinetic energy. Okay, and this epsilon SGS is something. So this, for in the dissipation term we are having epsilon SGS. This is calculated as C epsilon into K power 3 by 2 SGS divided by delta. Okay, so this is related with the basic formulation of rate of dissipation of turbulent kinetic energy. So it means in case of LES simulations, while we are considering higher order SGS model, along with the 3 momentum 1 continuity equation, we have to also solve one additional equation for transport of turbulent kinetic energy. This transport of turbulent kinetic energy will give different values of kinetic energy in the different parts of the domain, and that will be helping us in accounting for the anisotropic nature of the turbulence by having different values of viscosity in the different portions. Okay, now comes the important part, that when we are having the uniform mass. Okay, so for uniform mass we have already told you that delta is of the order of delta x and CGS is having some constant value. But when we are having non-uniform mass, at that time delta, I told you, that is nothing but cube root of delta x, delta y, delta z. But in that case we are having some generalized formulation of this constant, which is given in the form of CSGS is actually 0.16 into cos hyperbolic square root of this entire term, and over here we are having some A1, A2 over here. So A1, A2 are nothing but the scales which represents the non-uniformity in some certain direction. For example, A1 is nothing but equal to delta x by delta y, and A2 is nothing but ratio of delta x by delta z. So how much non-uniformity we are having in our grid, that is also actually accounted when we will be using the non-uniform grid for large eddy simulations. Okay. Apart from that, obviously, when we will be using these large eddy simulations, we have to also supply some boundary conditions. So boundary conditions are, as in case of other situations, we have to provide some inlet boundary condition, some wall boundary condition, some outlet boundary condition, and if we are having some free stream, then we have to provide some free stream boundary condition also. Okay, so sometimes in case of LES simulations also close to the wall, when particularly y plus value is less than equal to 1, under this condition, instead of solving the additional equation, sometimes we use the logarithmic law of velocity profile, whatever actually I have shown you in the earlier lectures. Okay, in terms of outlet, if it is far away from the obstruction and flow is kind of fully developed situation, we can go for the zero gradient conditions, and for free stream also normally we go for the zero gradient conditions. Okay, however, in case of outlet, one slight difference is there with LES simulations. For bar parameter, which includes the effect of mean flow plus large eddies, for that we consider simply del phi bar n by del phi bar by del n equal to 0, which is nothing but our zero gradient condition. However, for fluctuating component, we don't use this. Rather, for fluctuating component, we use the boundary condition as del phi dash by del t plus un into del phi dash by del n equal to 0. So this is nothing but our temporal and advection equation we are considering for fluctuating component. Okay, now comes the inlet boundary condition. So obviously for inlet boundary condition, we have to supply the proper velocity profile. Okay, so velocity profile means that will be having the nature of instantaneous velocity. So instantaneous velocity means u equal to u bar plus u dash. So this is one like issue, that every time finding out the exact velocity profile is something which is not possible. So majority of the times what we do, we employ estimation of turbulent kinetic energy for specifying the inlet boundary condition. There what we do, we consider some turbulent intensity in the range of say 1 to 6%, and based on that turbulent intensity, whatever turbulent kinetic energy we get at the inlet, that actually we uses. Okay, however, if we are simulating some phenomenon for which already experiments are performed, we can obtain the boundary conditions from experiments also. Okay, and one more thing is done sometimes. Say that we are having some domain of this size where we are having turbulence, but if we are not having proper knowledge about the inlet boundary condition, then we will be taking some domain in the upstream direction, and this domain is almost 50 times of our d dimension, if d is the dimension of this channel. So 50 times of d domain we will be taking in the upstream direction, and here we will be giving laminar velocity profile, and in this region actually flow will be transforming from laminar to turbulent region. Okay, but once again this will be becoming actually more computationally expensive. Okay, now one more important I would like to highlight in terms of computational expenses, though it seems to us that in comparison to Reynolds averaged Navier-Stokes equations, we are not solving some extra equation over here, but still with large eddy simulations, because we have to go for some spatial filtering, etc. So this particular simulations are actually more time consuming or requires more computational expenses in comparison to the Rennes simulations. Okay, if I give you one brief idea, say for same problem, if we are using Reynolds stress model, of Rains, and in another case we are using LES approach. LES approach will require almost 2 times more computational resources in order to have same time limit of the computations. Okay, so this is all about large eddy simulations. Now let me just quickly go through the very last topic, which is called as direct numerical simulations. But before that, just let me know that if you are having any query in case of LES. So LES is clear to all?
Yes.
Okay, so let me now briefly explain you about the direct numerical simulation. So very first thing you have to remember in case of direct numerical simulations that here we are not taking any kind of approximation. Okay, so if we are not taking any kind of approximation, we will be solving our main equations including the instantaneous parameters. For example, for continuity, I'll be solving del rho by del t plus divergence of rho u vector equal to 0. This u vector will be nothing but u I cap plus v j cap plus w k cap, and these u v w are the parameters which will be actually representing their instantaneous value. It means these will be including the entire fluctuating nature. Okay, so over here we are not doing any kind of averaging, rather whatever fluctuations are there, we are trying to solve each and every fluctuation. So there will not be any change in our continuity and momentum equations. The equations will be similar to that of laminar flow equations. However, in case of laminar flow equations, our parameters are having some specific constant value, whereas in case of turbulent flow situation, we will be having actually fluctuating parameters in our governing equations. Okay, now one important thing is clear, that we are trying to find out the effect of smallest eddy which is present, and obviously depending upon the kinetic energy of the eddy, they are having different time scales also. So whatever the fastest time scale present into our flow domain, that also we have to resolve. Okay, so the important part is if you see, we are having smallest length scale as nothing but Kolmogorov length scale, which is given by symbol eta, and eta is nothing but, if I take the ratio of this Kolmogorov length scale to the large turbulent scales, that is proportional to Reynolds number based on the large length scale power 3/4. Okay, similarly if I see in terms of time scale, if I write tau as time scale of the smallest eddies, that is proportional to nothing but Reynolds number power 1/2. Okay, now you can see over here that if we are having a situation where Reynolds number is having value say 10 to power 4. So if Reynolds number value is 10 to power 4, now you can say that length scale, smallest length scale will be having order REL power 3/4. So if it is having order REL by 3/4, it means smallest cell size I have to consider in order to account for this value eta. Okay, so and moreover, we know that even if we are having 2-dimensional flow situation or say 1-dimensional flow situation, there also we have to go for the fine mesh equal to that of size eta in all 3 directions, because in case of 2-dimensional flow also, if there exists turbulence, it is of anisotropic nature and we will be having presence of turbulent eddies, turbulent velocities in 3rd direction also. Okay, so that's why if I have to include the total number of meshes will be nothing but proportional to REL by 3/4, because mesh will be proportional to this small size. So total number of meshes in our simulation domain will be REL 3/4 in single direction, and in all 3 directions it will be nothing but power 3. So it will be proportional to REL power 9/4. Okay, now you can see that if my Reynolds number is having value of 10 to power 4, Okay, so 10 to power 4 is not very high value for turbulent flow situation, because we are having very, very high large values in case of turbulent flow situations. Okay, so for an old number of 10 to power 4, you have to consider almost 10 to power 9 number of cells. Okay, so you can see that your domain will be having 10 to power 9 number of cells. And as I told you that we will be having some fluctuations. So some of the fluctuations will be very fast and some of the fluctuations will be very slow. So in terms of time scale also, we have to consider our delta t time step of numerical simulation as nothing but of the order of tau by 100. So it means whatever smallest time scale of turbulent eddies we are having present, at least for finding out the effect of that turbulent eddies, we should have something around 100 time steps in order to average out the effect over 100 time steps to obtain the contribution of that fastest turbulent eddy. Okay, so it means that in terms of computational resources, direct numerical simulations are actually very, very computational source requirement, and expenses are very large. Even for very, very small domain and moderate range of Reynolds number also, you may find that if we have to do the direct numerical simulations, computational time may be in number of years. Okay, so I'm not talking about days or months. Okay, it may be number of years. So for doing a simple direct numerical simulation within the range of say 10 to power 6 Reynolds number, we may have some, if we are even with the good computational resources, it may take number of years to get the solution. Okay, so that's why direct numerical simulation is something which is not very much used in the industrial and the engineering application. However, it is used only from the perspective of academic research. Okay, for example, in our turbulent equations, we are having some of the terms which we cannot even measure experimentally. We are not having instruments available for measuring some of the fluctuating components into our flow domain. So for such type of situations, we have to be dependent on nothing but direct numerical simulations. Another thing is, say when you are proposing some turbulence models, okay, for example, in case of RANS, if someone is proposing some turbulence model, or even in LES, someone is proposing some turbulence model. So if someone has to validate that proposed turbulence model, for the validation purpose, we have to use direct numerical simulation, or we can get the first-hand information from direct numerical simulations, and based on that information, actually one can propose or build some new turbulence models in order to improve the numerical solutions. Okay, so the sole purpose of direct numerical simulations is actually academic research. Okay, now in case of direct numerical simulations also, there are certain computational challenges. So two challenges we have seen in terms of the time and spatial resolution, time and spatial resolution. Apart from that, in terms of temporal and spatial discretization also, there may be some instabilities into our solution. For example, when we are considering this very, very fine small size of our small grid size, in that case, what will be happening actually, sometimes our numerical errors in the solution, will be of the order of convective and the diffusive term. So it will be very difficult for us to segregate in between the error and the contribution of the flow parameter. Okay, so under such conditions, this may result in significant numerical error. So that's why one has to devise some special discretization space as well as the time discretization schemes in order to take care of all these effects. Okay, another important point I would like to highlight over here, as we have seen from the energy budget earlier, that smallest eddies are the ones which are having least turbulent kinetic energy. Okay, these are having least TKE. So it means for the smallest eddies, our viscous effects are dominant. So because of the viscous effects, this viscous dissipation takes place for the smallest eddies. So instead of using exactly 10 to power 9 size, many of the time we can go for grid size in the range of 5 to 15 times of our Kolmogorov length scale. Okay, or total number of cells, say for example for this I have written that of the order of Reynolds number L 9/4, so we can take something around divide by 100. So these cells may also work because the smallest eddies are of dissipative nature. Okay. Now regarding DNS, apart from the academic research, we are not having much simulation data available. And for majority of the direct numerical simulations which are done in past, there are some databases maintained by different universities, and one, if wishes to do research in DNS in the area of direct numerical simulations involved turbulence, one can utilize these databases for validating their initial simulation results. Okay, now with this I will stop over here, and with this our actually discussion on turbulence is also over. Now from next lecture onwards we will have discussion on boundary conditions, that how we can actually include boundary conditions into our computational procedures. Okay.